that's a little bit of the history of the Electoral College and, you know, why it is. Now, you may feel like, I don't know if I like that Electoral College thing, you know, maybe that needs to change. You know how things like that change? You got to vote. You may say, hey, I think that's a great idea. They should keep on it. You know how things, you know, you need to make sure things continue. You need to vote. Regardless, the whole key with all of this is make sure you vote. Next slide. So I want to get into a little bit of the history of voting as well as how we really do pick a president in the United States. Some key dates, can you go back one? Some key dates to keep in mind. October 19th, the last day to register to vote. You say, well, I don't know. Am I registered? I may not be registered. You can go to vote.ca.gov, okay? And you can click on and you can register online to vote. Now, you say that's the deadline. That's the last day to register to vote. Yes, sort of, kind of, because they really want to make it easy. After October 19th, you can go online and conditionally even register to vote, okay? You can do that. So it is a deadline, but you can still actually register after that deadline. You say, well, I don't even know if I'm registered to vote. I didn't get a ballot. I thought I was supposed to get a ballot. You know, am I registered? You can go on that website and check voter status and find out if you're registered also to vote. The vote.ca.gov will take you to this other site and you can see registration status. October 27th, the last day to request a mail-in ballot, okay? The governor passed an executive order, and what he decided was that all active registered voters in the state of California will be sent home mail-in ballots. Why? Because of COVID-19. California, they want us to vote safely. Say, well, can I still go to the polls? I heard there's some really cool poll places open now. I can vote in Staples Center. I can vote at SoFi Stadium. Yes, you can. You can still go to the polls, but everyone who's an active registered voter should have been mailed a mail-in ballot. You say, well, I'm an active registered voter. I didn't get one. You can still request one and get a mail-in ballot, even if you still didn't get one. November 3rd, the last day to vote, either by mail or in person. And November 20th, you say, well, I put it in the mailbox, you know, and the mail, you know, that could take 3 weeks. They'll still count your ballot up until November 20th, okay, if you get it in the mail by November 3rd. Next slide. Okay, key direction when you're voting. When you vote, you need to use black or blue ink. Some of us are creatures of habit. Every time we get something, we got to fill in those little circles on a piece of paper. We think we're supposed to use pencil because we went to school and took standardized tests and used pencil. No, for voting, they want you to use ink. Make sure you use ink. The other thing that's really important is to make sure you sign your ballot. It is important to sign your ballot. Why? Your signature will be verified. They verify the signatures by machine with the signature they have on file through the DMV. Remember, it's the states that control their elections. So the state entity, the Department of Motor Vehicles, they have your signature. So it gets verified to see if the signature matches. If the machine can't verify it, then they will hand verify it, okay? And if they can't hand verify it, okay, then they'll try and call you, okay? So it's not a good time to change your signature right now, but it's important that you do sign your ballot. Next slide. Okay. Some resources, okay, that are available, all right? There's a number of resources. First, everyone was sent a book. You were sent a voter's guide, okay? That's that big book that's, you know, sent on recycled paper. Some people like it, some people don't like it. You know, it's helpful. It contains a lot of useful information. There's a lot of resources online also. One of them, Ballotpedia. What is Ballotpedia? That is kind of known as the Encyclopedia of American Politics, okay? It will tell you who is running, when they declared their candidacy, okay? You know those big maps that you get of the United States, and they show you the red states and the blue states and the states that are red but trending blue and the ones that are blue that are trending red? You can look at that on Ballotpedia. It changes and it updates pretty regularly with what's going on in the different polls they're taking. Also, the Electoral College votes and how many there are in each state. It shows you that kind of thing. Policy positions of the candidates. Ballotpedia has that kind of information. Can you go back one for me? I think we skipped one. There we go. Okay. Other resources. Okay. In vote.ca.gov, we told you you can register through that website. You can check your registration status. You can also track your ballot. Okay. There's a lot of, hey, I don't know if they got my ballot. I'm not so sure. You know, you can schedule for your ballot to be tracked. If you want them to text message you when they get your ballot and they process it, they'll do that. You want them to email you, they'll do that, you know, through their ballot tracking, okay? I already mentioned this. If you missed the deadline of October 19th, you can do the same day voter registration link on that website. You know, you might say, look, I get a ton of stuff. I got this book. I got another book on polling places. I got 7 pieces of mail, and 8 of them were on propositions and this candidate and that candidate. I don't even know where my ballot is. You can go on lavote.net/replace ballot. You need a replacement ballot, they'll send you another ballot, or you can call this number. Next slide. Okay, I went to that one. Now, next one. Thank you. Another website I think that's very helpful is called Ballot Ready. BallotReady.org. It's a nonpartisan online voter guide. You go into Ballot Ready and you put your address, your home address in there. And there's a lot of different things that they've got on Ballot Ready. You can research your particular ballot on Ballot Ready, okay? And what that'll do is it's going to provide easy to use information for you about every single candidate and every measure. Sometimes the candidates we need help on, but I mean, all these, you know, it's not just, you know, usually the president, you know, you turn around and it's like, oh, there's 10 propositions they want me to vote on. Or, oh my goodness, look at all these judges. I don't know any of these judges, you know. Judges, they're not gonna give you that much information about, but at least you can see what jobs they have been doing in terms of what their titles and roles were, as well as where they went to school and something like that. But you're not going to find too much personal information about judicial candidates. But in any case, you know, Ballot Ready has a lot of information. It also, on candidates, it'll give you the biographies, which groups are endorsing these candidates and which ones may not be. So that's a very helpful website as well. Next slide. Another one is excellent on the propositions, because sometimes these propositions, you know, we see commercials on them and things like that. And, you know, some of them we're familiar with, and then others will get there and will say, I have no clue what they're talking about in this one. calmatters.org. That's an excellent guide on the ballot measures. It explains them. It tells you those that are, you know, what, you know, those that are for this measure and what it'll do, those that are opposed to this measure and what they think it'll do, the different groups that are endorsing a particular measure, who might have started the measure and why, the fiscal impact of a particular measure or proposition. It's very user-friendly as well, calmatters.org. Next slide. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mia, and she's going to do the rest of the presentation.
Great, thank you, Joanne. Amazing job with all the history and just going over a lot of the introductory steps for voting. Joanne and I are very fired up about this. I have my Vote 2020 paraphernalia on, so definitely excited that you guys are here. So just continuing other resources, and Joanne forgot to mention this, but or not forgot to mention this, but we've verified and went through these resources ourselves. You know, Joanne knows a lot of these backwards and forwards. So we hope that that gives you all some comfort that, you know, we verified and went through them, because there's a lot of information out there. Another website that's really helpful is govtrackinsider.com. You can track congressional votes. It has various articles, etc. Vote quadrant.com. We included this one because it specifically talks about strategic voting for stopping police brutality, which you all know has definitely been something we've talked about and had an event on with the squad, and is definitely a very current issue. Factcheck.org. So in the spirit of being a Berean and really studying, you know, the word, and again, verifying and looking at the information ourselves, this is a great fact-checking tool to, you know, verify candidate statements. A lot of candidates, of course, always sound good, but definitely check the facts. There's so many commercials and just ads and flyers, so definitely use that tool. Another tool, if you guys are in a pinch or have a urgent question, is the Election Protection Hotline. I've actually volunteered on this hotline as a pro bono attorney through my firm. I've done many volunteer shifts over the past couple of months, and we answer people's questions regarding voter registration and just all the things that we're going through tonight. So you can call them and ask them questions, and there's also the website there, 866ourvote.org, and they will be happy to help you. And like I said, I've volunteered personally on that hotline, and it has great information. Oh, and one more thing before we go to the next slide, LaTanya, is I was going to say for the ballot measures, there are a lot of really important ballot measures that are on our ballots as LA County residents. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of advertising around Prop 22, which is about Uber and Lyft drivers and whether they're going to be classified as independent contractors or employees. But some other ones that are really important, and just to emphasize the importance of voting, Prop 21 is about rent control. Prop 23 is about a kidney dialysis clinic. Measure J is about reallocating local resources to community involvement. Prop 17 is about the right to vote for those who have already completed their prison terms. So please, please, please go on and do your research on these propositions. One thing that I find helpful is if you already are affiliated or know of an organization that you generally believe in, they sometimes have voter guides for the proposition. So for instance, League of Women Voters or Black Lives Matter might have voter guides that, you know, if you personally agree with those positions, you can look at their voter guides and they'll tell you their stance on the propositions and measures. And that really helps me when I'm making decisions going to organizations that I already endorse or are affiliated with. So that could be helpful as well. Okay, next slide, LaTanya. Great. So as we talked about before, there are three options for casting your ballot. One is in person, which we'll go over a little bit more in detail. The second is by US mail. There's no postage necessary when you send it back. If you're going to send it back by mail, it should look something like this. So no, don't have to put any postage on it. Just make sure that it's postmarked by 8 p.m. on election day, like Joanne talked about, because it has to be received no later than November 20th. So timing is important. Don't wait until 8:30 or 9 p.m. Make sure that it's postmarked by 8 p.m. on election day. And then there's also the drop box, which I'm sure you all, again, have seen lots of news and press about, but the closest drop boxes near your home are going to be listed on page 2 of your ballot. So you should use, it's going to look something like this in this section, page 2 of your ballot. Only drop off your ballot at one of those locations, or if you look up other verified locations, but those are the ones that should be near your house. And again, make sure it's in the drop box by 8 p.m. on election day. That's very important. Next slide, LaTanya. Okay, so just a little bit more on in-person voting since it's a little wonky this year. Voters in LA County, so for most of us, we are not assigned to a single polling place, so you can actually vote at any polling place in the county, which is nice. You're not designated to one specific polling place like some other counties are in Southern California. The polling place is, your polling place is listed on the sample ballot that you would have received in the mail, or on the back page of the voter information guide mailed to you. But if you don't have that and you lost it for whatever reason, like Joanne said, you can call the numbers we've listed here or text to receive your polling place, or you can visit the website as well that we've listed. So there's many options for getting your polling place. They're open from 7 to 8 p.m. on election day. If you are in line when the poll closes, you can still vote. So, you know, if there's a election worker who tells you otherwise, that is incorrect. Just make sure you are in line, even, you know, if it's 7:59 or 8 p.m., you can still vote. You can vote early in person in LA County. I've started to see some friends do this starting October 20, or look into this starting October 24th. And I think some locations already have been opened, but for what it's worth, generally, I think you guys can start looking at, if you wanted to do that, where to vote. And those voting locations and the hours are available at the link we've listed here. So that's definitely an option as well. And we do want to emphasize, like, if you can, y'all, please vote early. You know, things come up on election day, or, you know, things we don't predict. And so that's why, if you can mail it in, do the drop box and vote early. We think that's just so important and so key. Next slide. Great. And Joanne and I also noticed that there's this quick check-in at a vote center option that I haven't seen before, and it may be because of COVID this year. But basically, it's kind of an interactive sample ballot, and so you can access it and fill it out with your phone or computer, and you take the QR code with you to the voting center. And so we listed the website where you can try this out if you guys are so inclined. But it seems to be something that's a little bit new. And again, yes, you take it, you take that check-in code to the vote center, and the election workers will find and print out your ballot for you. So again, we've listed that resource as well to make things easier for when you go in person to vote. That should hopefully ease some of the process for that. Next slide. Tanya. This is a picture of a real ballot box. There are definitely fake ballot boxes that have been planted around LA by various constituents and parties. So please, please, please be on the lookout and, you know, imprint this picture in your brain of what it should look like. Joanne, you took this picture, right?
Yes, that is the ballot box that I dropped my ballot in on Monday.
Good.
And
yeah.
that one's on 62nd Street across from Ladera Park. So that's the one I went to.
Yeah. Yeah. So please be on the lookout, y'all. I think that, you know, look at the vote by mail drop box locations that are actually on your ballot, or please go verify it on the, you know, California Secretary of State's website. But yes, that's a picture of how the ballot box should look. Very important, so that your vote is counted. Next slide, LaTanya. Great. And then we mentioned, you know, this as well in the beginning, but track your ballot. Make sure that it gets where it's supposed to be. There's a lot of different options. Go to vote.ca.gov or California Ballot Track, .net, to make sure that it went where it needed to be. And I think they are providing a lot more options, like Joanne said, texting, emailing you to let you know that your ballot has been received. So please try to do that if you guys can. Next slide, Latanya, even though I think that might be the end. Yeah, so that was all Joanne and I wanted to cover in the formal presentation, but we have time for Q&A. To the extent you guys have questions, please ask. Yeah, and you can ask in the chat or come off mute. It might be a little bit easier if you guys can come off mute if you guys have questions, but we'll definitely try to get the questions in the chat as well.
Okay, well, I put mine in the chat, but I guess I could ask. I noticed that, like, I remember, I forgot which year, but some of the time they're already done counting, I guess, like everything while people are still like in line on the voting day, and they celebrate whoever, you know, has like the, I'm guessing it's the most votes, or maybe is that they win the state, or does that have something to do with the electoral votes that you guys were talking about? Because before, you know, like they announce who's going to be president like the same day, and I know you guys were saying that they have all the way to November 20th to still count those votes. So, and I've also seen it like where, you know, like the newscast is filming people in different states standing in line voting, but it'll still be people standing in line voting, but they would have already announced like who the president's going to be.
You know, that's an amazing point, because when I lived on the East Coast, of course, that never happened, you know. And then we noticed when we moved out on the West Coast, because the East Coast is 3 hours ahead, and they're really basing it on the votes they already have and the projections. So there have been times where there have been elections here and our polls have not even closed. It's before 8 o'clock and they're already projecting a winner, you know. And, you know, I can remember a few times thinking, gee, I was going to head out at 7 and vote, but they're already projecting who's winning. And that's based on, you know, the states that have already called it, as well as the poll projections that they have, even when, you know, we're still in line voting. That can happen when votes are, when they're at a point where they can call it. The only thing I can say is I'm glad I don't live in Hawaii, where they're even hours away, you know, so they're not even off of work yet and it's already being called in those places. But that has happened. And, you know, that's why it's probably good to vote early, because, I mean, then you're not even as motivated, you know. But remember, we're voting for president, but we're voting on a lot of other things as well. Yeah. Mia?
Yeah, I would just add to that yeah, they're based on projections, states that have already called it. There are I definitely, and this is just to urge you all to get your votes in early, because there are so many problems and inequalities with the way votes get counted and the various systems that are in place to count the votes. You know, we've heard stories of, you know, machines breaking down, and, you know, there's close calls, and some of these things get legally challenged, you know, and because of the inability of various people's votes to be counted. And because voting is controlled by counties and at a local level, you know, if resources are inadequate in a certain county, that's obviously going to affect the resources that they have to be able to efficiently and effectively effectuate voting. So get it in early, but yes, technically they of course are supposed to count, you know, and should and do count every vote that's submitted. Those are just projections.
And it's a possibility that may not happen this year because there's so many mail-in ballots, and because state legislatures determine when they're going to count those mail-in ballots. No, I mean, for example, in some states, they've decided they will count mail-in ballots, you know, early as they come in. Other states, they've decided they're not even going to start counting their mail-in ballots until election day. And then there are states who do that by district. Some districts will count their mail-in ballots early. Some won't start counting until election day. So because of just the huge number of mail-in ballots, it'll probably be a little bit different this year. And I think so far we've had about 10 million people that have voted, 10 or 15 million that have already voted in the US this early. So
Yeah, that's a good point, Joanne.
Mia,
Yes.
this is Tiffany Nelson. I just have a quick question. You guys didn't address what would happen if person XYZ decide they got their ballot, and they decided I want to vote in person. I do know that there's a procedure for that, but we didn't discuss it. So you guys talk about that?
Sorry, Tiffany, you broke up a little bit towards the
Sorry.
end for me. What was the exact question?
So a person has a mail-in ballot.
Yes.
They decide, oh, I'm not going to mail it in. I want to vote in person at my local poll. There is a procedure for that. So did you guys want to talk about that? If someone is late in something like that and they decide they go to the poll in person instead?
Okay, I see, Tiffany. If you want to talk about it, I don't know if I'm aware of that procedure, but if you have, we can definitely circle back and provide more information on that. But yeah,
I mean, bottom line, you have to take your mail-in ballot.
take your mail-in ballot. Yeah.
You cannot show up as a mail-in voter and say, I want to vote in person. They will have you on roll, but they will not allow you to vote unless you have your mail-in ballot to turn over to ensure there's no.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah, you got to take your mail-in ballot with you if you decide, because just about everybody got a mail-in ballot, and so you got to take your mail-in ballot there if you decide I'm going to show up to the polls. And there's no assigned polls either. So you can, if you want to go to one of those cool polling places like Staples Center, you can do that, or SoFi Stadium, because you don't have season tickets to the Rams, but you can go vote there, so, so you can go to those places because there are no, but you got to take your mail-in ballot with you.
right, yeah, because they're not going to give you two ballots, so you have to already have the ballot. Thank you, Tiffany. That's a great point. Any other questions?
I have a question for Mia. If you can give me like one website you would go to learn about the props, which one would it be?
You all like dressed different.
So so what I will say from a nonpartisan perspective, I really do like League of Women Voters. They have a great comprehensive guide on various propositions and measures. If you reach out to me personally, David, I'll tell you kind of different organizations that I personally endorse and agree with their perspectives that have really, really great voter guides. So yeah, or I'll chat you privately. But yeah, I really do like League of Women Voters. I think they do a great job. And again, that's nonpartisan. But there are definitely other resources that I use. So I'll definitely get those to you.
One I recommend, David, is Cal Matters. You might want to check that one out. Okay. On the props also.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we didn't.
No,
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say we didn't address every single proposition, but I know someone put in the chat. Yeah, there's one on affirmative action. There's just there's one about corporate tax loopholes, amending the California Constitution. There are a lot. So please do your research and due diligence on that.
I have a request.
Yes. Please tell us.
I was using the wrong microphone. So this is Tiffany Duvernay Smith. There was a slide toward the beginning of the presentation that gave a lot of dates, like when we can vote, when we have to stop voting, etc. Can we see that slide again?
Yeah, Latanya, could you pull up key dates? I think this is,
Yeah.
we can send this presentation to anybody if you just message us also, if you want those. Okay.
Oh, I'm anybody. Thank you.
You're anybody. You're somebody.
Yeah, Tiffany, I'll just send it to you.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
great.
are somebody.
Thank you, Tiffany.
I think it's supposed to be, this presentation is supposed to be posted on the LA Church website also. Okay, so because I realize, you know, we realize the names, dates. I think they're going to put this on the church website as well. And we can just send you the presentation, anyone who messages us.
Mhm. Greg, I think I cut you off.
No problem. I guess I have a question that kind of references two things that people talked about before. I think one of the sisters had talked about, I guess, the status of the vote as it will be on November 3rd. And I think because of the structural differences that are happening now, my question is, do you want to speak a little bit about some of those just vast differences between usual years and this year? Because, you know, since people have already started to vote, you know, for those of us who are still learning about voting, we might not realize that, like, the vote is already happening. So it's like there's a relationship between the state vote and information that'll be on there, like you said, but what should people expect on November 3rd? Like at the end of the night, what would you guys, you know, what would we recommend for people to kind of look out for? Would it be the same or different? You know, not just in the projections, but how should we feel about it? Like, let's say you put your vote in. Are you looking for some sort of result, or when should we look for results?
I think it's really hard to say, because even though there are record numbers of early voters, because different states tally those early voters differently, it's going to be tough. You know, everything I've seen and heard, you know, it said, hey, we may not know for a while. Okay. You know, because of, you know, all of the mail-in ballots. You know, it's different this year because, you know, there are such high numbers of mail-in ballots. Whereas, you know, in the past, those who requested mail-in ballots get mail-in ballots. They're used to voting by mail. Some states, you know, have had a whole lot of mail-in ballot voting, you know, for a long time, but many are not. And, you know, the other thing is the early voting, you know, there's states people are turning out in record numbers now, waiting in line for hours to vote. So that's also happening. So, you know, there have been elections, they've gotten called on election night. And as you know, there have been elections where, you know, we don't know for weeks later, you know, who's going to be president. I remember in 2000, it was, you know, it was a long time we were waiting to find out, you know, because of what happened with Florida and the hanging chads and all of that kind of stuff with those ballots. So you know, what should we expect? I honestly don't know. What's important is, you know, there will be an election. There will be a lot of things voted on. Eventually we will find out, you know. I guess our job is just to make sure we vote. And I mean, from everything I've heard, everyone's emphasizing vote early because of, you know, how people are voting, you know, during COVID-19. Mia?
Yeah, I would agree with Joanne. I think my inclination, and from what I've seen and heard from people, I mean, this is just really unique. I think local county board of elections commissioners and departments are really overwhelmed. This is very overwhelming. I've seen various states volunteering on the hotline, changing resources day by day. Then there's fraudulent, attacks on voters of sending them, different things like you need to get your vote in, but it's not coming from, the official county board. So I guess for me, I think a lot of kinks will need to be worked out. I hope and pray that some of those are being worked out now, because mail-in ballots are trickling in, and I think at a much higher rate than we've seen before. But I would it's hard to say, but I would expect that, there will be a lot that's going to happen after Election Day. I don't think just given the nature of the pandemic and, this whole thing, that it's going to be as set in stone as maybe it has been in other years. I just think so much is in flux, and the counties and localities are really overwhelmed with the amount that's had to change over the past couple of months with voting.
Okay, thank you. I think from that, maybe all of us can take that we won't get those projection things, or we will get projections on election night, but it's not the same fundamentally. So maybe we shouldn't freak out if we don't get a called winner. But even if we do get a called winner, that almost, it's a high percentage. It's in the 90s that wouldn't be correct, unless there's a certain avalanche of votes in early. Like that would be something that would have enough votes in that certain key states would show someone has already won. Someone already has over 50% of the vote. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. And so, I watch it really closely. I guess I wanted to make sure people heard that, because most of us think election night is going to have a result. And this year it's not. For sure it's not, because some states have decided they won't start counting votes until that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, period.
Yeah, that's true. Even though they said they can do them really fast, it's hard to do millions and millions that fast. But yeah, that is true.
Yeah, and so, by the way, since I had just happened to be working in Georgia, I happen to know, like, Georgia's a key state. Their infrastructure is not the best. And, if you look in your news feed, you'll see the results of their first couple of days. They already had snafus saying, you guys have to wait in line 11 hours, right? Like, if you go in, you literally have to take a day off to do that. And that's with machines. So they also had a push at the last minute to change back to paper ballots. So things like that are happening. It's not a joke. We definitely have a lot of reason to pray.
Amen.
I have a question. So on your ballot where it says write-in candidate and there's a line and an empty circle, like who's that? LaTanya Keys? Like, can I write my name in there? Like, what's going on? Because I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, who is that? Who do you put there?
LaTanya Keys.
But I'm just saying, like,
You can put your name in.
No, you could. You could.
oh, you know what? It's about to go down.
You can put your name in.
Oh my gosh.
Or
Is that
Kanye
it?
West.
They're
Like-
surprising. Yeah.
So, like, no, are there extra candidates? Like, is there another candidate that's not listed here or something? Or the candidates that are listed here are the ones that are running?
No, the
Those-
candidates that are
Go on,
listed
Mia.
are set. Those are, the official candidates. But there's always a write-in option.
Okay.
Little democracy.
There's
Good.
always what Doug said.
Okay, good. So when you guys get to number 72, Judge of Superior Court, just put LaTanya Keys right there. At least I have about 46 votes. Joanne shaking her head.
I have a question as well. Just
Amen.
So. Oh, go ahead, though. Yeah.
hey, I just appreciate this many people on the line is this organized and not like This is awesome. But my question is, I'm dealing as far as cyberspace and the tracking process. If there's you or anyone that may have some expertise or just some experience with the tracking process of your vote from the mail-in ballot perspective, and even from when you go to the polls or something like that, I think that's very key, because what you can't track, it's hard to come up with whether or not you even feel, especially where we're at with trusting the voting process right now with a lot of us, if you could help us with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the website, vote.ca.gov, and you click on where's my ballot, then, what you have to do is you have to put in your name and your zip code and I think your address. And then it sends you a code, I think, and they put you in their tracking system. So each ballot is coded. And so once they receive your ballot, you know, and you tell them how you want to receive your tracking information, whether you want it texted to you or emailed, that information emailed to you, and you're in their tracking system. Now, I put my ballot in a Dropbox on Monday, but when I went into the tracking system, it told me in February when it received my ballot in the primaries and when it processed my ballot in the primaries. So when you put your name in the tracking system, they started this tracking system before this election. It told me what they did and when they counted my ballot in the last election. And what they said is when they process my ballot, I will get a text message, because I told them I want to be notified via text that they receive my ballot and when they process my ballot. So you go to that website and you put in your information and you're registered in their tracking system.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I generally trust the tracking systems and the websites, you know, that we provided. I mean, you know, one is by the, you know, the local government. So I do trust it. Another, and I can't remember if we put it in the PowerPoint at some point, but Zoe, if you reach out to me, I've seen a lot of voters actually like call the, you know, the local county board of elections. You know, I think it's a hit or miss. I've had to do that for some voters on their behalf on the hotline, and it seems to be okay. It's just you just deal with like the administrative wait times and, you know, that sort of thing. But calling, you can always call them and ask as well if they've received your vote, if you don't, you know, want to do that.
And I thank you. See, with this right here, from what I see, and all of the great information, especially with it being recorded, I think from an evangelistic perspective, as I'm reaching out to people out there, I want to be able to say, we met in this group, we did this, and you know, you may not want to find out about God, but you can definitely come find out about the people you're trying to vote for up and down that ticket and that ballot. And I think that it'll help from, you know, just an external perspective. So what you've done is just valuable. What you're doing tonight is valuable. Thank you so much.
Amen, family. For sake of time, guys, why don't we take one more if there's any more questions, and then I can wrap up, and then we'll definitely have a prayer to close us off. So does anybody else have one or a question they want to ask about the process, what we went over tonight? If not,
Can you tell me the website where we can find the presentation, Joanne?
Oh, it's not a website. We'll just send you the whole thing. Okay.
Okay, I thought you
I
said it was
just
a
sent it to
church
you.
website.
Well,
Okay.
Latanya's on the spot.
I emailed it to you 15 minutes ago. You got it, girl.
But
Anybody else who wants the presentation, just send, you know, myself, Mia, an email. We'll send it. And like I said, I think it's on the LA Church's website, but if you don't feel like doing that, we'll just send you the presentation.
it will
amen. Well, amen. A big thank you goes out tonight to Joanne and Mia. Great job. I definitely feel more informed, as well as have so many more resources to check and go on the website and get the information. And so I'm super excited that we've had this time. Not only I want to thank Joanne and Mia, I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your evenings to sign on with us. As was stated a little earlier, we did record the session. And so we will be able to disperse that out to anyone that would like to, maybe listen and view the session at a later time. And so I just want to finally just thank you guys for chiming in tonight and supporting the squad events. I think it was very productive. And I'm super excited just for what God has done thus far and what he will continue to do during the election season going into next year. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And obviously, if you have any questions, please email those to the squad email. That email address is mlasquad2020@gmail.com.
MLA
And so, I'm sorry. And so again, that's mlasquad2020@gmail.com. And so you can email us any questions. You can email us and say, hey, that was amazing. Great presentation. We like compliments as well and encouragement. But we want to hear from you either way. And so thanks again for tonight. And so to wrap us up, I'm going to ask the spiritual brothers to wrap us up. And I'm putting him on the spot, but I know he'll do a great job. At this time, I want to ask the one and only Jacob Esperanza to really wrap us up in prayer. And after that, that'll be it for tonight. So Jacob, ball is in your court, brother.
All right, let's bow our head in prayer. God, it's very clear that your wisdom is reigning tonight. It's clear that your spirit is reigning tonight. Look how we've come together to really, as a fellowship, as a people, that we want to do what you've called us to do, to be as disciples, to be like your son, and to go out and to really be a part of this community and do our parts with what we believe in. God, advocating for what we know is right, for really being a part of the world and the building up the world around us and being a part of it and having an influence on it the way you would have us influence it. God, we just thank you for all the preparation that has happened today. We thank you for all the organization and the heart that has gone on today, for everybody that has spoken and all the preparation that we have seen today. I pray that you will put wisdom on every single one of us, that you will give us the whatever the world needs to in order for you to be glorified, that we will do that. Lord, there are so many different choices and candidates, so many different things that need to be tackled. Let us not take them lightly. I pray that you put every single issue, every single prop on our hearts, that we evaluate them, and that we really take time to think about it, to even pray about it, Father, and put it all in your hands. We know that you're in total control and that you are working out the world for your greater good, and we are looking forward to being participants of it. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.